All right, everybody, welcome back to Independent Wing News. I'm Zach Smith, and today we're going to be talking about Joe Biden's record on social issues. My source for this article is Wikipedia, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. So, in 1994, Joe Biden wrote the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act. This created 60 new death penalty crimes, including terrorism, murder of a federal law enforcement officer, civil rights related murders, drive-by murders, murder with weapons of mass destruction, and carjackings resulting in death. So I just want to talk for a brief minute about why blanket terms like terrorism and hate speech are dangerous. So, they label people like Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning terrorists when their only real crime was whistleblowing, right? Their only real crime was exposing the crimes of the elites in government. So what did Julian Assange do? He released emails of Hillary Clinton that showed how her and the DNC were rigging the election against Bernie. Among other things he released, but this was his only real crime, releasing the crimes of others. So, I don't know if you remember the Obama administration. They actually, I guess after they won in 2008, I believe, when he was running, they had all this stuff about whistleblowers, whistleblower protection, the Obama campaign promises to protect whistleblowers, and, I guess they actually left it up on his site while all this was going on, while he's trying to prosecute all these whistleblowers and stuff. So anyway, they had to end up taking it down. So another thing I wrote down is, why didn't they include torture in this bill? They got all these, crazy things like murder with weapons of mass destruction, murder of a federal Leo. Why would they not have torture in here? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the Obama administration is complicit in torture. They didn't put this in there because then Obama and Joe Biden and everybody else who's complicit in this would be subject to the death penalty. And not to mention, torture is already a violation of international law. So that was just a thought I had. If you're going to include all this stuff, why don't you include something like this as well? So this bill extended sentences, deployed more police, and disproportionately exploded the prison population with minorities. And then, so in 1986, he co-wrote the Anti-Drug Abuse Act, which gave crack users much more prison time than those caught with cocaine. So, I mean, this is obviously black users were more likely than white users to use crack, and in turn, the black users were punished disproportionately. I think Bill Clinton was a big part of that bill as well. So, Joe also advocated for the creation of a drug czar, and this led to the establishment of the Office of National Drug Control Policy. I mean, does anybody think they've done anything for us? We're in the middle of an opioid crisis, more people in jail for weed than ever. That's crazy. So anyway, this one kind of even blew my mind a little bit. He criticized both Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush for their soft stance on drugs. I mean, wow. I thought Reagan, introducing crack to the inner cities and locking people up for it, I thought that was tough enough. I guess not. So he also introduced the Comprehensive Forfeiture Act of 1983, which advocated for increased use of civil asset forfeiture, which, if you don't know what that is, it's legal robbery. It's basically the police can seize any property of yours they want without due process, without any court case. So completely unconstitutional. He supported that. Actually introduced the bill. He was also the co-sponsor of the RAVE Act, a law used to crack down on MDMA raved. Now, they say critics called it too broad in scope. I would say so. I mean, but you just say somebody's having a fundraiser or a party or something, and somebody just tips the cops off that there's MDMA there and they can raid the whole thing? How does this work? So I guess it was later renamed the Illicit Drug Anti-Proliferation Act of 2003. The law was passed attached to an unrelated child protection bill without public hearing or debate in Congress. So it seems too often this is the kind of stuff that happens. They'll include either one bad thing in a good bill or one good thing in a bad bill, or they'll just attach unrelated bills, and then that, it puts a congressperson into a position where they have to either accept the bad things that are coming with it and in order to get the good thing, or they have to, sacrifice the good thing in order to mitigate like some kind of terrible thing that's going to happen from this bill being passed. So this is another textbook example of that here. And then this law has been used by the DAA to intimidate groups organizing rallies and fundraisers supporting drug law reform. So now basically, whatever the boundaries of this bill are, they can pretty much go in, and a group like Normal that's, organizing a rally to get people to protest unjust weed laws, now they can pretty much harass these people under this weird law. So anyway, in 2010, Biden finally supported the Fair Sentencing Act, which aimed to reduce drug sentencing disparities. Of which he was the architect, is what I wrote. So, and finally in 2010, after all these years of this drug war propaganda, he finally decides, okay, now he's going to support the Fair Sentencing Act, which I'm not sure how deep that really helps. I'm not sure what it's done, but anyway, he did finally support that in 2010. So he opposed marijuana legalization since as early as 1974, called it a gateway drug in 2010, and a campaign representative finally expressed his support for decriminalization in 2019. I thought it was interesting that it said a campaign representative and not him. So it's almost like he doesn't want to come out and actually say it to his supporters, but he'll let his campaign representative say it so it can go in the Wikipedia article and he can look a little bit more progressive. He supports classifying cannabis as a Schedule II drug, apparently, which, hey, on one side of the coin, it's like any step is a positive step, but let's not forget Schedule II is, methamphetamine is a Schedule II drug. If we really think in 2020 that weed should be in the same class as methamphetamine, what are we thinking? Come on. So, in 1989, he sponsored a bill that would ban the AR-15 and 8 similar weapons. Regardless on your thoughts on the whole gun thing, here's my problem with it. If you start banning all these assault weapons, where does it stop? And do they think by banning assault weapons they're really going to slow down these murders or stop any of these gun deaths? It's not going to happen. My view has always been, if you're planning on committing a murder, you're not worried about the charge for the illegal gun. You know what I mean? So, I do understand the availability thing, but one of my biggest issues with it is if the police still have military-grade vehicles, military-grade weaponry, military-grade armor, then you shouldn't ban us from having it. Because what happens is if the police have all this military equipment and the people are left with hunting rifles, we have nothing left to defend ourselves. And that's what the Second Amendment was put in place for. It wasn't for home defense. It wasn't for hunting. It was to defend ourselves against a tyrannical government. So, anyway, regardless of how you feel on that, that's how he voted on that. He voted against Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act of 2005, which protects firearm manufacturers from lawsuits due to crimes committed with their weapons. Now, this one really threw me for a loop. Like, I don't understand how you would charge a manufacturer. How would you charge Smith & Wesson for someone committing a murder with their weapon? That's something I truly don't understand. If someone killed someone with a fork, would you call up the fork company and file a lawsuit against them? So that seemed ridiculous. Apparently Joe thinks the gun companies should have to be responsible for murders committed with their weapons. Let me know what you guys think about that one, because that's a weird one. I definitely don't see how they should be responsible for that, though. Joe was also a strong supporter of the Patriot Act and claims to have written its parent bill. So he claims the Patriot Act is pretty much a ripoff from one of his previous bills. Even after all the damage it's caused, he still supports it. Basically, it allows for indefinite detentions of immigrants. So if there's an immigrant, you can keep them. Indefinite means forever. They can keep an immigrant there forever. This goes back to what the United States was doing in the 40s with the Japanese internment camps. This is absolutely insane. Also allows for unlawful search and seizure. So, that means if the government suspects, doesn't have probable cause, doesn't have proof, doesn't have evidence, doesn't have a court order, if they suspect you're doing something wrong, they can search and seize your property unconstitutionally. This bill also gave the FBI unlimited spying powers on people with no court order. So that means they can look through all your emails. Obviously, this was a big thing Edward Snowden's been discussing and why he was extradited in the first place. And the Obama's 2011 extension of the bill allowed for surveillance of lone wolves, quotations, people suspected of terrorist activities not linked to terrorist groups. So again, this is surveillance of people suspected. Due process has gone out the window, and that's that. If they suspect you're linked to terrorist activities, even if you have no ties to terrorist groups, even if they have no evidence, even if there's no court order, they're still gonna come fuck your shit up, pretty much. Joe also voted for the Iraq War in 2002, voted in 2006 for the Secure Fence Act, which, hey, look at that, was to build a wall along the Mexican border. So I don't want to hear Biden attacking Trump for the wall. Actually haven't heard him doing that much. Maybe that's why. He signed a letter urging the Justice Department to prosecute file sharers. Now, when they say file sharers, they mean people who are like pirating movies, and I guess this was back in the days of LimeWire, if anyone remembers that. People who shared MP3s through LimeWire. So apparently Joe thinks that's one of our country's biggest problems. He also voted to ban gays from the military in 1993, voted to prohibit government from recognizing same-sex marriage in 1996. In 1994, he drafted the Violence Against Women Act. Now, this one actually, I guess I should have researched it a little more. I tried to read the bill, and the wording was strange. It seemed like it did allow for some federal funds to be used to pretty much fight these domestic violence cases, which is a big issue. I think that needed to happen. But it also seemed like a lot of these stipulations were unconstitutional, and I think it actually ended up failing and maybe another version of it passing, but I think that was the reason it was unconstitutional. It was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the main thing of it was kind of criminalizing the person convicted even before they're convicted. It also said people charged in domestic abuse cases can't have firearms. So again, I'm not going to go too deep into that one because to be honest with you, I didn't understand the wording of the bill too much, but hopefully Joe's intentions were good. So if that bill actually did some good, I'll give him props on that one. So from 1976 until June 5th, 2019, he supported the Hyde Amendment. Now, what this pretty much does is bars the use of federal funds to pay for abortion except in extreme cases like rape, incest, or if the woman's going to die. He also voted to end abortion funding for those extreme cases in 1981. So he voted to end abortion funding for women who needed abortion because of a rape, incest, or she was going to die. So now on June 6, 2019, he supported repealing the Hyde Amendment. So he's flip-flopping on all these issues, as you can see. Again, he previously supported the Mexico City policy, which is basically an effort to prevent any federal funds from going to abortion or even to groups that promote abortion at all. It's really a really shady type of bill there. So he previously supported that. Now he supports repealing it. So there's a brief layout of Joe's history when it comes to social issues. As you can see, he's flip-flopping on a lot. Let you guys make your own decision there, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Was I too hard on Joe? Was I not hard enough on him? Let me know, guys, and until next time, peace out.